Think deeply with me about how many times you've felt resentful about something you did in the past, and how many times you've run away from a feeling of guilt, blaming yourself. How many times have you felt that you're not enough, that you need to be someone else to be accepted? This internal conflict that humans live with is what they call a lack of self-reconciliation. And it's the hidden reason that makes you always feel incomplete, always hesitant, and always depressed. But the truth that few people know is that this peace that humans search for is not something you can obtain from outside, but rather an internal state that you reach through acceptance and reconciliation with yourself. Today, God willing, we will delve deeper into this topic and discover the secret that could change your entire life. First thing we'll start with, what is self-reconciliation? Self-reconciliation is reaching internal unity, meaning without conflict, without regret, without self-blame. In other words, it means accepting yourself as you are. This means accepting your flaws, your mistakes, your past, that dark side that you try to hide from people, and accepting yourself in your physical form, whether you're overweight, thin, tall, slender, disabled, limping, whatever you may be, accepting your situation. Our problem in society, brothers, is that we grew up with ideas that always make us feel inadequate, that you need to be successful to be important, or if you make a mistake, you're a failure, or if you feel weakness or express it, you're weak, meaning you need to be a perfect person for people to value you. These ideas have caused many people to live in an internal war between their reality and the image they're supposed to maintain. Have you ever seen an apple tree unhappy with itself, wanting to become a lemon tree? Or like saying a lion is suffering because it discovered it can't fly. So, self-reconciliation is understanding that you're human, not a god, and that you exist now not just in your past or in the future you want to reach. And why does a person always remain in conflict with themselves? Before we discuss how to reconcile with ourselves in this video, God willing, there are many pieces of advice. Most of the video will be completely just advice. But we first need to understand why we remain in this internal conflict. First thing, brothers, is upbringing and society. From our childhood, we hear messages like, you need to be a man, or you're called a failure, meaning you've failed, or you need to be tough. Don't show your emotions. Don't show that you're weak, or they'll eat you alive. Or you need to be better than so-and-so, meaning always putting you in comparisons. These ideas are ingrained in our minds and make us feel that we always need to be something else to be accepted. And what do? We start wearing masks and try to hide our flaws, and we live under psychological pressure without realizing it. Now see what can happen to you. You start self-flagellation and feeling guilty. For example, humans make mistakes, but the problem isn't in the mistake. The problem is that we link those mistakes to our self-worth, meaning if we make a mistake, we see ourselves as failures, not just that we made one mistake and that's it. Instead, we judge ourselves. And the problem here is that the remnants of that regret and guilt that we live with in our subconscious mind remain, holding us back and make us feel that we don't deserve to be comfortable. Add to that, we develop a non-acceptance of our flaws or weaknesses. We always want to appear perfect, always appear strong, without problems, without deficiencies. But the truth is that every person has their dark side, has their flaws, has things they hide from people. There are things that only you and God Almighty know. You can't tell anyone. And you know we're all mistaken. The error we fall into is that we run from our flaws and hide our emotions and try to escape from the truth. But in reality, running from oneself is the main cause of suffering. Why is self-reconciliation necessary? Self-reconciliation isn't just something you should do, but it's the foundation of any psychological comfort. If you're not reconciled with yourself, you'll always live in a prison without feeling it. If you have fear of others' views, you'll always remain living to please those people, even at the expense of your happiness. If you keep flogging yourself constantly, you'll keep blaming yourself for every mistake and live always in the past without enjoying the present. And you'll always see the deficiencies in yourself without appreciating the good things you have. I mean, you start to always see that deficiency in you and don't notice that you have some good things. Why? Because you're programmed to certain things that you've heard that you think are the truth, and you're always running from pain. But in reality, you're always accumulating these problems. But when you reconcile with yourself, you reach what we called internal unity, and this makes you psychologically free, not tied to the past or subjected to that fear, or needing people to approve of you to feel your value. Now, brothers, how can you reconcile with yourself? The first thing I want you to focus on well is confronting and accepting the past. The biggest obstacle that prevents people from reconciling with themselves is the past. Events that happened, mistakes or things they did that they regret, or some experiences they went through, clashes, disappointments. But can the past be changed? It can't be changed, so we shouldn't remain in that past. I'm going to do something. I'll take a sheet of paper and a pen. Now thankfully, Ramadan is coming, meaning time seems longer, so you have time. Take a sheet and a pen and write down those things that you still regret or feel guilty about when you think about them. See those things that happened to you and ask yourself, can I change this past now? If the answer is no, then you need to forgive yourself for that problem and accept it as part of your journey, and remember that no one is perfect. But society tries to brainwash us that we need to reach perfection. The truth is that perfection is the biggest lie, and people who appear perfect also have their flaws. They just hide them and show you what they want to show you. So instead of trying to hide your flaws, try to understand them. Why do you behave this way? And what's the origin of my fear? And why do I have these feelings of jealousy or anger? For this, you need to do an exercise. Write down 3 flaws that you see in yourself, and for each one, try to understand what the origin is and how it formed in you, and ask yourself whether it's possible for you to accept or try to develop from it. without judging yourself. Another thing you need to do is you need to stop from today, from now, from when you hear this video. You need to stop self-flagellation and constant blame. I mean, how many times have you said to yourself, I'm unlucky, I don't have luck, I'm envied, I'm this, I'm that, I'm this, I'm this, I'm this. These phrases are ingrained in your subconscious mind, and you start to deal with yourself on this basis. Meaning, instead of this way, you didn't fail in that thing, but you tried that thing. You start trying to give yourself some positive thoughts. I told you at the beginning, don't laugh at yourself or look down on yourself. But with time, as we said, the subconscious mind is programmed. You need to understand this issue of programming. Meaning, even those lies you tell or that thing you said that you're not, with time you start to believe it through programming and through sensory intensity. Another thing you need to do is you need to forgive yourself and free yourself from feelings of shame, embarrassment, or disgrace. Shame makes a person always imprisoned in a negative circle because they start to feel they don't deserve to be happy. But the truth is that each one of us has made many mistakes, and each one of us has a past. But that past of yours has passed and no one knows about it. But what do you do with this past today? Meaning, self-forgiveness is saying, I made some mistakes and I caused some problems. But that person from the past, now we are children of today. I won't let that past of mine rule the future. Meaning, brothers, self-reconciliation isn't about becoming perfect, but accepting yourself as you are and stopping that conflict between you and yourself. The past you can't change, but you can learn from it without imprisoning yourself in it. Your flaws shouldn't be a source of shame, but should be a source of awareness. Blame and self-flagellation won't change anything. But by reconciling with yourself and reconciling with your past, you'll find your way. And the question now directed to you is, are you ready today to begin the first step of trying to reconcile with yourself? Try to understand your feelings and accept them. When you feel fear or anger or sadness or, don't run away, but stop and contemplate and say, what are these feelings and what do they want to tell me? Meaning, think every time you feel a feeling, ask yourself, what is the deep reason for this feeling and why don't I want to feel it? And is it possible for me to accept it or not? These questions are important to rotate in your mind and free yourself from comparison with others. Never compare yourself with someone else. The majority of people who are miserable in this life are people who compare themselves with other people. They place their beginning with the result of another person, or you compare with a person who doesn't have the same circumstances at all. You start to judge yourself with frustration. Each one of us has their own journey, and each one of us has their own circumstances. Comparison is the biggest trap that deprives you of discovering your message. And how will you know that you've reached reconciliation with yourself? Meaning, now that you're listening to this video, after finishing it, you'll want to ask this question. How will I know that I've reached self-reconciliation? First thing, you no longer flagellate yourself for the past. Meaning your past is finished for you. It was, and it no longer is, as far as affecting you. You no longer feel that you need to change yourself to be accepted, meaning you no longer have this concern. You no longer run from your feelings but try to understand them, and you no longer compare yourself with people but always focus on your own journey, and you start to have an internal calm and acceptance of yourself. You don't get angry a lot, and you don't live in anxiety and tension from early morning. So, to summarize, brothers, this topic of self-reconciliation is the greatest gift you can give to yourself. Self-reconciliation isn't something that comes today and tomorrow, but it's a journey of awareness and freeing yourself from the constraints we were raised with, returning you to a human, living the original version of yourself. And if you've reached this point, I hope, brothers, that you've benefited from this video. And if you have reached this point, leave us your comment and we'll see you in another video.